All right, welcome everybody to the NWO show, your source for everything New World. I'm joined, of course, with my co-host McLeod. Let's make sure your mic is
Hey
working for
guys.
this.
Hopefully my mic is working. Fingers crossed.
Super, awesome. I heard it on stream. There we go. Um, so, obviously, today is kind of a just crazy day for New World because this is the patch that I think everybody has been kind of hoping was coming. You know,
Kind of blew me away, dude.
yeah. I mean, we say it every single month that patch day just seems to be just insane. Like like they're really putting the gas on in terms of making changes to the game, making edits to the game. We got a major patch today. Uh, with patch notes, with a new PvP vision and new features specifically for PvP to incentivize it in the open world, as well as some other game modes. Um, there's a new weapon. There's new. There's just new all kinds of
It's
shit
just
today. Like,
so many new things. It's insane. Like
yeah,
it still blows me away that like we're talking about patch notes for a game that isn't actually out yet and is still technically under NDA. Like who like what other company? What other company does this? Like what other, game
very
developer
true.
does this?
Very true. I mean, I can't think of any that uh, definitely, yeah. I can't think of any that do this. So we're going to touch on something here at the beginning of the hour um, that I think is important, and then immediately followed up by the patch notes. The thing that we want to talk about immediately, right off the break, and this is going to throw McLeod for a loop here, um, is Amazon Game Studios being blamed for the cancellation of Lord of the Rings, the
Oh,
MMO that they
this.
had in development.
So
Um,
so you thought this might throw me, but like I still kind of know a little bit about this anyway, because it's kind of like it's funny because so many people see Amazon as that company that you love to hate. So it's like, oh, Amazon's done, so Amazon's like, you know, been embroiled in something that means that, we don't get to enjoy something. So it's immediately their fault.
mhm. Now, the reality behind this
Bear in
story,
mind,
and people are going to, people are going to say, oh, I'm just white knighting again, blah blah blah. Uh, the reality behind this story is that Amazon was co-creating an MMO based on the Lord of the Rings with another studio. That studio was then purchased by a company called Tencent. If you don't know what Tencent is, it is a pseudo Chinese government owned entity, massive conglomerate that has been buying up just about anything in the entertainment
I,
space that
I
it can
I
get
can
its
give
hands on.
I can give you a more accurate version of what Tencent is, right? You know all of those games that you used to see like 5, 10 years ago, right? That looked very much like those games that Western companies were making, but like they had all the art assets and stuff like that, but they were being released for the Chinese market kind of thing. And you thought like, how can they do this? Like, isn't there some laws to prevent this? Well, in China, no, there's not. And so the Chinese government basically made this to be a thing. Tencent was the tip of the spear for this. And eventually, Western companies kind of realized the only way to prevent them from just blatantly just ripping their stuff off and like, selling it to the Chinese market is to kind of get in bed with them. Like sort of, get involved with them because then at least you can kind of partially control what's going on there. That's what Tencent is, the tip of the spear for the for not the Russian, for the Chinese kind of sort of domination of the game industry, and that's the reason why so many Western companies are basically in bed with them.
Hmm. They bring a lot of money to the table. They generally ask for things around user data and stuff like that. one of the big ones that most people know about is that they own Riot Games as one of the many studios that they own. So if you play League of Legends, the Chinese know exactly what you're doing in game.
They try and own like controlling stock in companies. That's basically what they're trying to do.
So
they saw
with that, we're going to go into that on another time. But I wanted to bring it up at the top of the hour here because there's a lot to talk about there. All of the major news articles that came out openly stated, that Amazon canceled it. They're not entirely wrong, but there's a lot of context there that's missing, and the nuance is not as simple as many would believe. That said, we'll see what happens in the future.
For example, if a company decides to change the terms of their agreement to include that they want to have sexual relations with your mother, and you say no, that's not on, and cancel that agreement, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not the bad person there in that particular situation. Yeah. They are for trying to think that they could push those, that agreement on you, right?
Oh yeah. Hey, and thank you for the 2 gifted subs, by the way. Very much appreciated. So, needless to say, that'll probably end up being a whole other show between patch notes. We'll talk more about that. We'll see if we can get some more comments. We were able to scrape up a number of things, including commentary from, I believe it's Jassy, who is succeeding Bezos as Bezos stepped down. And he is commented as saying, we're still all in on games. He doesn't. Basically, it's just an amount of time that's going to be required until it takes off. Some studios take off right away, some don't, and it takes some time. And I mean, anybody here today who can tell me Electronic Arts' first game offhand without Googling it?
It's going to be a sports game, I think.
Probably FIFA 1. Hasn't changed since.
I mean, the catchphrase for the longest time was EA. If it's in the game, it's in the game. So
Yeah. I believe it was some side scroller or something, because they've been around forever. But people don't remember that they've been around forever. There's a reason they're as big as they are. But I digress. We're far away from the topic that we should cover, which is the patch notes. So right off the break, there's image, 2 things in this image. 1, an armor set that we have never seen before that looks baller. And 2, the Ice Gauntlet in action. There's a number of pictures that we'll show. There's a number of pictures that that we have access to that we'll show. And this is going to be a good one, guys. This is going to be a really good one. So obviously the Ice Gauntlet's been added. There's going to be various tiers of them. There's 2 different focuses on the mastery tree. So one will focus on damage and area denial, and the other one will focus on crowd control, protection, deployable ice pylons that fight alongside the player, improving their power and efficiency. So, kind of some cool stuff already. I'm happy that that's gonna be a big one. That I think that's gonna be a pretty awesome weapon to use. I believe that it stacks solely off of intelligence, so that'll be an interesting dynamic to the group for magic caster types. And of course, there's going to be the accompanying legendary quests to go with it, so that you can get legendary versions of the item in game. Now, here's where things get thrown for a loop that I was not expecting. This right here is a massive PvP change. Faction control points to incentivize PvP action and make the influence race more interesting. We've added the ability to fight over forts in a territory outside of wars. Capturable points have been placed in all territory forts. Players can capture these points by having more members of their faction inside of the point than other factions. Forts that have been captured will remain captured until a different faction either claims the fort themselves or wins a war for the territory. From there, players will need to be flagged for PvP to enter any claimed fort. So, in order to be in there, in order to fight for it, you have to flag up ahead of time, which means you have to go to the settlement, and then to the fort. Then you have to survive until you get to the fort. Then you're in the fort, and, Thunderdome style. From there,
you have to get to the fort.
Yes, you have to get to the fort. So control points will be activated 60 minutes after a war or invasion is completed. This gives the time for the actual war to complete. People can kind of reset, regroup, get the correct gear on and all that, and get back out there. From there, of course, naturally, because during the actual fight itself, the fort is, if you're trying to take a territory, it's actually part of that fight. So you don't really want to be involved in that. You don't want it to be involved for that time frame. But outside of that, it's basically an ongoing, pull across the map of who owns what forts, where armies are fighting. And of course, it's open world, so you could have many people fighting for that point. You could have hundreds in there. So it's really, if they're gonna commit hundreds to defending Everfall, but you can go and take 2 or 3 others while they're defending that one, it might be worth strategically moving around the map to take over different points. Now, the other part of that is that each fort has a unique global buff that is provided to the controlling faction. For instance, First Light reduces fast travel weight cost from Azoth, from 5 Azoth per 10 weight down to 1 Azoth per 10 weight for the controlling faction, which makes moving stuff around easier. Monarch's Bluff reduces fast travel. What's that?
Just a quick thing. It seems as though there seems to be 3 that affect your sort of fast travel options. The basically the cost of fast travel. There is actually, so there's that. Then there's there seems to be it looks like 4 that are related to taxes of various different forms. And then 3, which is 3 that are related to like all the rewards and stuff that you get from various different things like expeditions, breaches, and faction missions.
Yep.
And then
now the other thing is these are global too, so that the tax rates will drop globally across all settlements.
So they stack. And what I would say is what you said previously about using fast travel to basically get into the fights quicker and more effectively. Holding First Light, Monarch's Bluff, and I believe it is Cutlass Keys would be kind of crucial, because that reduces your Azoth use by weight. And I think this is the first time we've actually gotten an idea as to what the calculation is for fast travel, right? I don't think we ever actually got an explanation or a kind of like a breakdown in any way, shape, or form during the preview event.
Yeah, I don't think we had
or at least firm... it wasn't. It didn't seem.
Yeah, we didn't have a firm set amount that we knew.
Yeah, I don't know whether it was just based on it was just a flat amount, but like it seems to be very much dynamic and based on stuff now. So obviously now we know that it costs more per weight. So if you're wearing a heavy armor set or you're carrying a whole bunch of stuff, that'll add an additional cost in Azoth to your fast travel. If you're a further distance away from your destination that you want to fast travel to, that costs more Azoth. And also, whether you have a controlling faction, whether your controlling faction controls the area that you want to fast travel to.
So I also skipped probably one of the most important things here. Controlling a fort provides a 5% increase to experience gain and a 20% increase to influence within that territory for the faction members. So that's a pretty solid thing. In terms of fort trading, I don't think there's too big of a concern, mainly because you can rally your faction to go and fight against them, and regardless of the size of any group, there's always ways to beat them. And in a confined area, AoE damage is always a benefit.
I was just calculating the numbers right now with those reductions in weight costs and all that. Basically the reductions in the fast travel options. Like, I kind of feel like I'm wrong here, but 5 Azoth per 10 weight down to 1 Azoth per 10 weight sounds like an 80% reduction. So does 5 Azoth per 100 meters down to 1 Azoth per 100 meters. So if you have both of those, basically, that's a 96% reduction. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
And then obviously, if you have the reduction by 50% for the controlling faction, that's down to like 98%. That's insane.
Yeah, that is
fast travel everywhere.
So, effectively speaking, this is giving people a lot of incentive to own these territories, a lot of incentive to own multiple territories, and also a lot of incentive to own specific territories, based on what they want. Like Weaver's Fen here increases coin, experience, territory standing, and faction token rewards from faction missions across the game. That's a pretty substantial bonus to your faction. Totally worth fighting for.
I can see people fighting for Weaver's Fen quite heavily at the start of the game.
Yeah, I mean, Weaver's Fen and Cutlass Keys, I think are really big and really worth fighting for. I think that some other changes that they've made will also integrate into this and kind of make it a little bit more likely that these change hands relatively frequently. Not to mention the fact that they, of course, maintain being open all day unless there's a war going on.
Yeah, that's true.
So when war is declared, it locks it at the faction who owns it right then, and then goes through the war, and then an hour after the war, it's back to open for fighting again. So basically, it's an ongoing struggle. Being able to take and hold all of them is going to take a substantial group of people and a substantial coordination effort, and not to mention the fact that everyone else is going to be fighting against you. So
I mean, it's also a lot of stamina, obviously, because you're going to have to be doing that, like holding it most of the day, or at least, you're going to have to hold it and keep holding it until the point where you can actually declare war on the place, so you can lock it for a certain period of time.
Yep. and being able to hold it 24/7 is easier said than done. But outside of that, they've also made some other additional stuff and changes. They've added in a new expedition, which is the Lazarus.
They've added 2.
Yes, they've added new expeditions, the Lazarus Instrumentality, and the Dynasty Shipyard, where you'll be fighting the Empress of Ebonscale. And the Lazarus one I think is kind of interesting because there's a background story behind Lazarus. For those that don't know, the name is synonymous with Christianity.
I think Lazarus is I think it was the name Lazarus actually kind of it is in a bunch of different kind of religious texts.
Probably. So Lazarus of Bethany, also known as Saint Lazarus or Lazarus of the 4 days, basically he spent 4 days dead, and is the subject of a prominent sign of Jesus in the Gospel of John, in which Jesus restores him to life after 4 days of him being dead. So, kind of fitting with the whole coming back to life motif that is. I did just bring up the wiki page for Lazarus. That said, he's not the only thing in there. There are some pretty crazy bosses in there. Scylla, a creature utilizing both lethal weaponry and destructive magics. Her dual nature will test the worth of those seeking to learn the ancient secrets. And Chardis, a colossal ancient construct standing watch over the Lazarus Well, granting eternal power or swift destruction to those who waken him.
Interesting that they use the word construct.
Yes. To give an idea of his scale, here's an image of him.
Oh, you're gonna show.
He's not small.
See, oddly enough, that seems like it's a kind of a perspective, like a weird perspective. Like it kind of looks like a super close perspective, like he's just like sort of laying on the ground.
There we go. There's a little bit better perspective.
That's a better perspective.
So not small. Definitely not somebody you wanna randomly come across unprepared. We've got a whole number of some of the awesome images from this patch. Then a quick scroll through here. The art team continues to amaze. Just every time we see these.
Oh yeah.
And I'm gonna pause on this next one because this is just freaking cool. Like, he's got the ice gauntlet, he's got the armor set that we were talking about earlier that has never before seen. This is entirely new to anybody and everybody. So I'm excited because it's just cool looking. Like, it's different. It's I think it's really kind of breaking out on its own and making a new kind of feel for the game. We got a couple of images and GIFs of the actual animations of the ice gauntlet. So apparently you can turn yourself into a pillar of ice here. Shoot a beam of ice. So McLeod and I always been a good fan of these guys. This is an Ice Guardian. So happy to see their return to the game.
My baby's back.
Oh yeah. Let's see, we got kind of an ice field, which I'm sure is kind of a slow here. trying to find the other ones here. Like I'm missing one.
Or do we want to go into the? Do we want to carry on with the Icebound kind of patch notes, or do we want to go into a little bit about the Gauntlet?
So, didn't we covered the Gauntlet at the top of the hour, didn't we? Yeah. Yeah, because that was the first thing on here.
Yeah.
So let's keep going through, and we'll drop back onto it. So
Oh yeah.
we've got the 2 new expeditions, so that puts us up to, I believe, 4, or possibly more. I can't remember exactly, but I think I remember there being 4 now.
Yes, I think there's 4.
Yeah. So from there, they've also added in achievements. More than 400 achievements are currently in the game, which it'll give you, once you're about 75% complete, it'll give you a UI alert saying, hey, you're close to completing this achievement. And then, of course, when you complete it at 100%, little celebration happens on your screen.
I wonder how cheesy that's going to be.
Yeah, that could be interesting.
Hopefully it's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Like the sort of like, from what we've seen of of New World so far, like the achievements, like getting to certain levels and stuff like that, seem to be pretty cool. So I don't expect it to be cheesy, but I don't know. I just get I can't help but think of like achievements as being kind of cheesy.
Oh yeah.
But there's a lot of people who love achievements, who they're goal orientated, and they're I think I know a couple of people who are completionists.
Depending on the game,
who really like achievements. Yeah,
absolutely. Achievements are. One second here. Achievements are completed at the account level, but progress towards completion is tied to the individual characters. So there is an ability to have multiple characters, because you may have multiple characters on different servers.
Yeah.
So they're tying the achievements, of course, to the account, because then of course they can make it a Steam achievement, and then from there, multiple characters can do different things, depending on where they are.
For example, I can play, on a Euro server, and I can play on, say, a US server with A's.
Mm-hmm.
And both of those characters can work to achievements. Obviously, only one will achieve certain achievements, but because they're all like completed at the account level, I don't have to get the achievement on both characters.
Mm-hmm. So some other changes. They added voiceover lip sync to the quest givers in the main story quest. For those that don't remember,
cool.
Last week they did announce, or was it last week, or I think it was the week before, they announced quest changes, and those quest changes included voiceovers, and kind of a pseudo story mode that had a little bit more in-depth missions and a little bit more incentive to complete.
It was an important thing because one of the main aspects of one of the main things that allows people to kind of get sucked into the story and sucked into the characters is making the characters a lot more believable. And if you have them voice acted, that goes a long way. And like obviously if they're voice acted but their avatars aren't actually sort of lip synced, kind of does break a little bit. But I'm glad that they're adding this lip sync because it's kind of adding to the believability, right?
Oh yeah. So now past that, you've got PvP Faction Missions. They've introduced
It's
a new
actually
style of PvP missions, which require players to complete missions in contested areas where their faction's opponents will be competing to accomplish their own objectives. Basically, they've now a lot of people complained in the preview that, hey, the PvP missions are really just about avoiding other players, completing them and getting back without dying. Well, it doesn't really
Now it's not
force
that
the issue of
like...
PvP. Now it's, you need to PvP to complete these. You are going to go into an area that the enemy is likely there, and they are likely trying to do the opposite of what you are doing.
Yeah,
so,
the game is literally going to grab you guys and push you together.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is I don't know whether, like, it'll sort of match people together properly, or whether it's going to be like, hey, you're doing PvP missions, you're doing PvP missions, smash you two together. I don't really care whether you're a level 60 or you're a level 9.
I'm pretty sure that's how it's going to be 12. In the open world.
So that's going to be awkward, but we'll see if Amazon Games can mature that in any way. But I think it's, on the whole, the right direction.
Yeah. Well, and with the ways that they've kind of set things up, with elite enemies preventing lower level people from going into higher level zones, and massive XP debuffs, and just very little incentive to stay in low tiered zones if you are a high tier or high level individual. You probably will see less of it, and they seem to have some engineering aspects of that to try and prevent that, but I'm sure it's still going to happen. And that's also the thing with PvP is, hey, my faction's going to have level 60 people, your faction's going to have level 60 people, you hit one of my faction's level 20 people, and I'm going to come wallop your ass with my level 60 people, and that's the glory that is open world PvP.
I can imagine you like throwing a ping out to the company, kind of going, a war crime has been committed, we must ride.
Mm-hmm. I'll go teach some people what's for. Aside from that, each faction now has their own mission types that better immerse players with their chosen faction. So the lore behind each faction is going to matter a little bit more in terms of some of the specific missions that'll be offered, and maybe the goals that'll be offered based on those contested areas. From there, the PvE faction missions are now multi-step across all territories, except for Shattered Mountain, Great Cleave, and Eden Grove, which are not claimable territories, and are designed to give players a curated tour to locations that fit their selected mission type. So, I suppose if you're doing, go hunt animals, or I don't know if that's one of the faction missions or not, but I would imagine it'll probably bring you around and hunt various different types of animals, and get ever growingly more difficult, which would be pretty fun. There's not a ton to talk about on PvE faction missions, so we'll move right on. And of course, just when you thought we were done with territory control incentives, there's more. That had a number of benefits for all members of a faction that controls a territory, as well as some additional rewards for the controlling company. Any two settlements owned by the same faction will have their settlement storages linked. Players can transfer items from a storage linked to their current location for a coin fee. Basically, if you got a bunch of stuff stored in one location and your faction owns that location and the location you want to move it to, pay them some gold, and you can move it for free. Or, well, for a fee, I should say, not free.
For a fee, not for free.
They've added a resource cart to each town that provides members of the controlling faction with small amounts of ore, hide, wood, fibers, food, oil, as well as small amounts of refining agents such as tannin and sandpaper, which a little bit of a bonus for, hey, now's a good time to have all of this stuff on hand. Maybe you need to craft something small, and you just need like 1 or 2 bits of something, to be a good place to quick grab stuff. If your company fails to pay its taxes and become delinquent, all company and faction bonuses are disabled, so your entire faction will now hate you, and probably all be pinging for the one guy who can pay the taxes, and I hope they enable that to be paid by anybody, because that's going to be a pain in the butt if
no.
Let's say we own a town and I'm the only one set to pay it, and I go to work, like.
I understand what you're talking about, but you should have known that like it was required to do it and pay it like there should at least be an ability to have to pay it like early, in some way, shape, or form, because, but like I kind of feel like if you're sometimes you need mechanics that incentivize a bit of friction between companies of the same like faction. Because if there's no internal kind of tension or internal kind of like friction in some way, shape, or form, then factions can dominate without having internal rivalries in any way, shape, or form. And most of the time, for like strong factions and stuff like that in other games, like strong groupings in other games, it's more often internal rivalries that actually are its downfall than external forces. So I'm all for not making it super easy, barely an inconvenience for in like normal, regular kind of like day-to-day stuff from happening inside of companies and factions, like this sort of like taxing sort of thing. I just don't want it to be like super easily payable by like literally anybody. Exactly. There needs to be a way for people to get like a bit pissed off with each other inside of groups.
Hey, it's Jafar.
Hey.
How's it going, bud? So from there, faction bonuses will be 10% increased gathering volume in controlled territory, 50 plus luck in controlled territory, so you're going to be able to find rarer stuff. Company bonuses, 70% fast travel discount to controlled territory, 30% reduced taxes in controlled territory, and 20% reduced home purchase cost in controlled territory.
I think this is also the first time that we've properly heard the actual faction bonuses and company bonuses. Like, I don't know whether it's actually been written up before.
I knew that there was a reduction in the travel cost, but I don't remember what it was. But now it's good to see that they're.
I think maybe we saw it.
Yeah.
But we actually get to see what the what the actual faction bonuses and company bonuses are, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's pretty cool. 50% luck in controlled territories. I didn't even know about that.
That's 50 points of luck.
Oh, sorry.
50% luck is, that's a whole different ball of wax right there.
That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Plus 50 luck, well, we don't even know how that factors into the equation, or the equation for luck anyway, so, like, I guess that's kind of meaningless still.
I mean, we'll see what it actually does closer to launch, probably. So they also changed some of the leveling requirements for certain things, and kind of how some things kind of work overall. They've added in tier 2 and tier 3 Azov stats, and you'll need those various stats in order to get and close higher level breaches. So this will keep you kind of changing out gear and have an incentive for moving those. Additionally, they've changed the levels for the tiers of the level requirement for each tier of camp, 1 through 5, to be level 5, level 15, level 25, level 40, and level 55, from where they were, which is a slight change from where they were. Fourth consumable slot now unlocks at 25 instead of 45. Thank God. For those that like carrying, potions and foods and all that kind of stuff, having that fourth slot is just vital.
I think, I think that's definitely a good change.
Yeah, that's a very healthy change right there.
Considering the changes that they did to consumables and that kind of thing, like the cooldowns that they did with the on the previous patch, I think doing that, but also changing it from 45 to 25 for the fourth consumable slot, like that's understandable because you have the cooldowns now that are kind of shared to all of them pretty much.
Mm-hmm. So also before, you used to unlock your first house at level 15, or used to unlock your first house at level 20. Now it's down to level 15. Second house is level 35, and third house is level 55, down from 20, 40, 60. Which is going to make it kind of a little bit nicer of a progression, and in that in the 50s you actually unlock some kind of benefit as you're kind of grinding to make your way up, which will be really good. All right, let's see. Loot and gear added ice gauntlets.
There's something a bit cool. There's something cooler down a little bit further down. Sorry, I'm
getting ahead of where we are.
Carry on. Sorry. I'm getting excited.
So they removed named shields from the faction shop and replaced them with faction-specific shields, so that there's a few more shields to be found out in the wild as legendary shields instead of just being able to hard buy them from the faction store. We're continuing to add more visual variety to the armor sets, updated visuals to all weights of tier 5 armors, high level corrupted, lost, angry earth. Enemies will all have a chance to drop armors with themed styles. So you could potentially get corrupted or angry earth styled armor to drop off of them, which is pretty cool. Let's see, added named items.
Technically, it means that you could also mix and match. Technically, that means that you'll be able to mix and match, so you'll be able to run around as like a half angry earth, half corrupted dude.
That'd be an interesting look. That would be an interesting look.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it? Yeah.
So, many people were wondering, why would I run expeditions more than once? They have added new items to expeditions that are, variety of random exclusive drops for each boss. But they've also added specific craftable stuff, so resources, to those that can only be found in those expeditions. So you will have to go in there and farm the expeditions to get that stuff, which I think is really cool. Added a unique set of Outpost Rush specific named armor and weapons that appear as rare drops from the Outpost Rush rewards chest. That's pretty epic. So you get rewarded for doing high level content with high level gear that also looks cool. That'll be a pretty epic thing. And
there's some cool stuff down here.
So
as well.
So we're like halfway through this, guys. Like, if it feels like I'm like hard charging through this, it's because this goes for days. Like, we're not even halfway. Like, and on top of that, like, we've got all of this left, and let me get it to the right spot so I don't forget where we were. And we've also got all of this. So, like, in terms of stuff
it's so
put
ridiculous.
Out today, there's so much. This is absolutely like crazy how much stuff they put out. It's okay. They've added a variety of new perk items to drop tables to accommodate the addition of new perks. They've added and updated all perks. There are now 150 different perks across all item types.
I'm just saying that is ridiculous.
Yeah. So, people often ask, why would I get into crafting? If I could just find stuff out in the world. Now, let's say you want a sword with a specific perk on it, with specific attributes on it, with, a specific gear score on it, maybe. It is substantially easier to craft that item than it is to randomly roll that item out in the wild from NPCs that have a drop table that includes 150 different perks.
Yeah, like
so crafting's going to be kind of important.
think about it this way, right? Like I think in a previous sort of in a previous step up, they said that the sort of the rarity scale in the when it comes to weapons and armor basically has 4 levels, right? You have 5 levels: common, uncommon, I think it's rare, epic, and then legend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, you get rid of common, right? Uncommon has 1 perk, rare has 2 perks, epic has 3 perks, and legendary has 4 perks. So when you think about that, like 4 perks, or like maybe not like crafting legendaries, but like let's just say you want to craft an epic weapon, right? You can craft, so long as you find and have all the various different things that you need for those particular perks, you should be able to craft an epic weapon with exactly the 3 perks that you want, and be able to have the attributes that you want from it as well. If you wanted to find that particular thing in the game, you would have to it's I think the probabilities is like 150 times 149 times 148 or something like that, right?
Something like that. Like it's
which is
pretty
just
crazy.
Insane.
So this is going to make crafting more valuable because you're able to target it by adding specific items that give it attunements and higher probabilities of being crafted with specific attributes and specific
So basically what we're saying is like this is like the fact that they are saying that this is that 150 perks are now available across the all item types. Like it essentially kind of means that there is almost a 1 in 3 million chance that you'll get the right perks just dropped as a weapon drop from something.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a massive buff to crafting.
And that's also assuming that it drops the right piece of gear that you're looking for, and that it drops
exactly
the right attributes, not just in terms of perks, but in terms of I wanted something that had dex bonuses on it, and this has strength bonuses on it. So like there's again, it's gonna be a royal pain to find stuff out in the world, other than by sheer quantity, and probably not the stuff you're looking for, to just randomly roll that out in the world. You're gonna need a crafter.
The necessity of crafters is just like, basically Amazon Game has just shown, like in black and white essentially, how necessary crafters are going to be in the game. Anyway, there is some cool stuff a little bit further down.
Oh yeah. So let's see. New perks.
Mastery ability perks.
Mastery ability perks. Yes. Added 6 master ability perks per weapon, 1 perk for each ability in the mastery tree. These perks modify the base functionality of one of the weapon's abilities. That's pretty cool. Like,
yeah, all right.
so, we don't really know the details of how that's going to work, but here's how I imagine that to work. I imagine that it's going to be something to the tune of, if you have a spinning attack, possibly changing it from, I don't know, a knockdown to potentially changing it to a bleed effect. Or something major that would change it, or increasing the range, or something that would substantially change its functionality, while making it a pseudo surprise to your enemy that, oh hey, that didn't do what I thought it would. And I think that would be a really cool way to go with things, and that would add a lot more variety. Bags and tools have 6 possible perks that can be applied. I'm going to fly through some of this because some of this I'm sure is important. But again,
okay.
We're at 58 minutes now, and we're literally at the halfway point of this one, and we've still got another death log after this. So some perks now feature internal cooldowns, such as Infused Mana perk. Lightweight perk has been removed as it conflicted with the new armor weight mechanics introduced in the March release. The old mana infusion perk has been removed entirely. So they've replaced the way that functions and what it does. Don't ask me what it is, because I don't know what it is. At least not offhand. Perk items now grant 1 bonus, as the bonuses no longer have levels. That's kind of cool, actually. The exceptions here are that attribute items, which can be updated in the future, or which will be updated in the future, so I guess we've got more crafting changes coming. And weapon charms, which I don't think we've seen yet, which will have a chance to grant 1 of 2 perks when used. Interesting.
Oh, cool.
Crafting and gathering, because we weren't already talking about crafting and gathering up there. Expeditions, and this is where I got the thing about the resources here. Expeditions now include expedition exclusive resources in their drop tables. Regular expedition mobs will drop one resource type, while bosses drop a different resource. This means in order to build some of the special items and craft replicas of the non-named expedition exclusive equipment, you're going to need to get your crafters these, very specific and only able to be gotten in expedition exclusive areas. So you're going to have to farm them. That's kind of cool. A side benefit of doing them makes them, replayable for more than just, oh hey, I've played this 100 times. This adds a little bit to it. Jewel crafting. Recipes now require jewel crafting components. This enables the same gear score range to be crafted into trinkets that was previously only enjoyed by other crafted equipment. Components are things like chains for amulets, bands for rings, hooks for earrings. These components are crafted first and then combined with a gemstone to create the trinket. They've added carnelian gems to ore veins and corresponding gem cutting recipes, so the stone cutting corresponding gem cutting recipes, so the stone cutting station. Typo. To the stone cutting station. Yeah. I was like, what the frick? Starting to lose my mind. In weapons, they turn on taunt, which puts players on top of the threat list to enemy AI. So if you have a tank, you're going to want them to have this on their weapons. Reap, Final Stand, Bash, Shockwave, Vault, Riposte, Perk, and they're set for those abilities. In armor, they reduce the amount of threat a player applies. So for instance, your healers and your mages and your more squishy dex guys might want to consider putting some of these gems in their armor. so that they are not considered a threat and they don't draw aggro despite dealing massive amounts of damage. They've also changed so that saltpeter was replaced with has replaced fire motes as an ingredient for gunpowder. It can be found all over the place. God knows, they're right on that one.
I am kind of glad, because I did kind of think like it was a bit weird having to use magic to create fire. It's like, what?
True. That one was a little bit awkward. And it'll probably make the price of fire staves drop due to the not having to have as many of them.
Yeah.
So, big, massive change here. Arrows and cartridges now stack up to 500.
Yeah.
So mid-raid, you're not reloading out of your inventory.
Okay.
Thank God.
Because to be completely honest, in a raid, like as an archer, you can get through 250 arrows pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. So there's some quality of life type stuff there, but let's keep pushing. Combat. Ranged attack. Now, okay, oh my god, this is in terms of quality of life. I don't know why I started with that, but arrows and cartridges was one thing. This right here, range just got so much easier. Ranged attacks can now be fired through non-enemy players. So now ranged players only need to worry about hitting the enemy, not necessarily firing at the back of their heads, at the back of your allies' heads. So
I kind of think, yeah, I get why this is a quality of life thing. I do kind of feel like it can potentially get abused.
So
I'm not gonna lie.
Here is the thing with this, and this needs to be explained in a very specific context, because this is a very good change, but it is a very controversial change, because most people will say, they'll say things like, oh well, the AI only has one type, it's not overly like bouncing around and a pain to hit. The new AI and the way the AI has worked, as they've described in multiple things, is as it gets higher up, it unlocks additional abilities, additional movements, additional potential like precog type crap that is really annoying to fight against. So during the preview was a good example of the beginnings of that system, where McLeod and I would fight against wolves up in the Great Cleave area, and they're just like, it was like they had pogo sticks for arms, or legs. Like they would just bounce around all over the place. Like you'd shoot an arrow at them mid flight of the arrow, all of a sudden they would jump to the side. So like that's hard enough to hit at that higher level. It's not going to be as big of a problem for the lower level stuff. I totally agree, is what it is, but at least then you're learning how to shoot, and by the time you get to that level 60, level 45 plus content, you're starting to get to the point of, okay, now it's actually kind of hard to hit these things as is. Not to mention, if you're in a group of 5 people, and people don't understand how to, not stand in between their damage dealers and the item, or the thing itself that you're trying to kill, it is what it is. But I do think that this is a good thing. I think it's something that they could probably turn on and off, depending on how people like it. But I personally think that this is a good change. I also think that in the context of PvP, that this is also a good change, because as you all know, PvP players are generally a little bit more agile. They're going to move around in very unpredictable ways, and they can be kind of a pain to hit anyways. So this is going to make this is a little bit of a quality of life thing. I do agree with the comment about it feels like it promotes zerging in PvP. I can kind of see that, but I think that I think that it makes things a little bit cleaner and a little bit nicer to ranged that already had a number of problems. If you guys remember, the musket has
Yeah.
had some historical challenges with being relevant in the meta, even though it has like perfect sniper aim. You know, still very difficult to hit anything.
It's always so I mean, I think everybody who has played, who has like been an actor in some way, shape, or form in a PvP sort of engagement, or even been in been doing PvE in a group kind of thing, has had that situation where you've been kind of denied that shot on target by a friendly who's just like sidestepped into your arrow as you fired it, sort of thing. So I get like that kind of frustration, but like when you do, I'm just concerned because when you do a change like this, it's one of those changes that like makes people think like, oh, we can just put our archers behind a whole bunch of like tanks, and they can just fire straight through the tanks, whereas the hostiles won't be able to fire and hit them, sort of thing. So I'm not super sure about this change, but like I can understand it being a quality of life thing, and let's see how it plays out. I have a feeling I know how it plays out, but let's see how it plays out.
Yep. So, and I do agree that this kind of passes quality of life, and it does become a little bit more of a core of combat change. But I do firmly believe that this is something that's worth testing, worth looking at. And based on like the size of what these fights can become, I think that it's beneficial in the long run, especially in like the 50v50 sieges, to have something like this.
And as you said, like it may become a bit sort of a bit more important as a large sort of PvP change. We're going to come to a new mechanic for a brand new mechanic as well.
Yes. Large enemy staggers. So this allows players to knock certain large characters into a long, highly punishable reaction by fully depleting their stamina. Now, I believe this is for the enemy AI, so it's not a player PvP type thing, but it's a PvE thing.
Okay, so it's PvE only, alright.
Enemies take stamina damage similar to how players trigger block breaks on shielded enemies, using heavy attacks and hard-hitting abilities to whittle down the character's stamina bar. So, fundamentally speaking, you break their stamina, they'll drop to their knees or something, and then you can beat the crap out of them before they get back up.
I'm actually glad about this because enemies reacting the same way that like players, well, I wouldn't say react, like I always kind of thought that if you do the same action to an enemy that you do to a player, they should react the same way. So the fact that they've now made sure that PvE enemies now react the same, similar to how players trigger block breaks, that's good.
All right, so from here, we're going to start talking about attribute threshold bonuses. This is a big one. This is a really big one.
This is really ridiculous.
This goes for a long ways. I'm not going to read all of them. I think I've linked the thing in the chat a number of times. But these are crazy. What these are designed to do, fundamentally speaking, is if you want to go all in on a certain attribute, you want to be super strong, but not have any constitution. You want to be super strong and get up into that 300 range, which doesn't give you a lot of points for anywhere else. Your light and heavy attacks will now gain grit, which means you can't be stopped. 25% chance to fully mine an ore node with a single swing. Kind of a cool bonus. It gives you an incentive to go up that high and be that powerful, but at the same time, you're sacrificing a more like balanced build. You know, like you could take, 150, taking 50% stamina damage from melee weapon light attacks, 10% decrease, and all the other bonuses, and having Constitution to add to health. Getting over that 50 mark is probably going to be pretty important. Getting over this one is probably going to be pretty important as well. Increase max health by 10% of physical armor. That's huge. If you're a tank, that's a requirement. If you're a tank, you've got 300 Constitution, and, you're going to hit them like, you're hitting them with a twig, but, at the same time, that's going to, you're going to live forever. So it's kind of cool to see all of these. There's a bunch of different like odds and ends things attached to them, but they really are a good way of just identifying and incentivizing people to potentially go with the glass cannon option, or go for a more balanced build depending on what they can unlock at different level, different attribute point levels. So I think that adds yet another factor to how you're going to fit yourself, because certain gear has attributes points associated with it. So do you go for all intelligence gear that's giving you intelligence bonuses? If you're a mage, it's probably a pretty good thing to do. But it kind of trickles down into a whole bunch of other systems, so that's kind of a cool thing to do. We don't know the absolute max that you can have, but I would assume it's probably not very much over 300. It'd be kind of broken if you had like 600 and could be an absolute tank and super glass cannon, for a specific damage type. So those are kind of cool, and I don't want to gloss over those, but there's a lot of stuff to read there. It's worth taking a look. I'll drop this in chat if you guys want to take a look at that.
It's interesting because it's just basically giving a lot of different options for going down different pathways when it comes to designing your character, or like designing how you want to play.
Absolutely. So from there, they've got some balance changes. So they're changing the hatchet. Light attacks added a 4th hit to the light attack chain. Decreased light attack damage for the first 3 hatchet strikes by 5%. And changed a few of the abilities. That's the big stuff right there.
Yeah.
The biggest change here is going to be muskets. Attack damage increased by 15%. That's a pretty solid buff and might be enough on its own. If you include in all of the other stuff, I think that's going to make the musket relevant, because it did need a buff.
Yeah, it's basically buff. Like most of the musket kind of sort of abilities and just general attacks have been boosted by at least 10% in terms of damage. Like some by 15, obviously standard attacks 15, power shot is increased by 15. But yeah, like just an overall increase in the damage that you can get from the musket now.
Yeah. So I think the musket's going to be much more competitive. Fireball, the cooldown reduction was reduced from 10% to 7%. Updated the skill so that only the base hit will reduce the cooldown, instead of it triggering
burns
over and over and over and over and over again with burns. And if you can gain the context off of the prior patch notes, where they made it so that there was a cooldown reduction for any time that the fireball applied damage, you could see that very rapidly, if you shot it into a group of say 15 people, would allow you to almost instantly recast and fire it again, which made sieges. Just thinking about that, where you're fighting over a pinpoint area where AoE damage is, probably going to help you. Carpet that area in burning ground. That just anytime anybody stands on it triggers, additional cooldowns of that same ability. Yeah. One could see how that might have been an issue.
If you can imagine that, and then just imagine a bunch of people with fireballs, like just sitting inside of the forts that you can now fight over, just waiting for people to come through there and just burn them to death. Like, it wouldn't have worked well. Like, it wouldn't have been a nice combination. So I'm glad that's been removed.
So some other small changes, nothing major. Moving on to UI UX. Big, massive thing. This is something the community requested over and over and over again. Secure player-to-player trading. Player-to-player trading allows players to initiate a secure synchronous trade of coin and up to 5 items at once with another player. There is both a lock-in step and a confirm step as a countermeasure to trade sniping. So you can't just change it to add a 0 last second and everybody hits OK and one guy gets shafted.
That's really good.
Yeah, they have clearly really made some effort. Yes. In terms of lock-in, let's dive down into inventory updates. Players can now lock their favorite items, which will add a little padlock icon to allow to them, meaning that they can be salvaged until they cannot be salvaged until they are unlocked. So you don't accidentally salvage your stuff. You're clicking through your items, all of a sudden you double click on something without hitting salvage, and you've swapped it out with an active gear slot for your primary weapon. I've done that before.
I think I did that one time. I think I've done that one time. I think I did that maybe once or twice in the preview event.
Yeah, that moment when you take a legendary piece of gear and salvage it, when you meant to salvage a tier 2, piece of junk that was just taking up inventory space, and you just kind of cry inside. Yeah. So that happened in the preview event, and that happened. So, aside from that, UI visual updates. Updated quests on the map will improve and consolidate UI elements for players. Added the following sorting categories for quest objectives: closest, easiest, territory, and type of objective. So you can try and get everything done at one time.
That's good.
Yeah, that's really good, actually. Sort by distances.
Especially closest.
Yeah. that or easiest. I mean, this is easy. Let's go do this one. Knock this out. Camera depth of field. We made an update to the foreground elements like the character when applying depth of field effects to the blur of the background. Now the outlines of the character on the inventory and NPC conversation screens are crisp and sharp. Visual update pass for Expeditions UI is complete, including a celebration banner on defeating the final boss. I just hope that it's like Clippy pops onto the screen and says congratulations. It looks like you're trying to kill a boss. I think that'd be hysterical, but that's just me. Anyways, I digress. Let's see. UI updates for Outpost Rush are complete. Added visual updates for level milestone banners and the level rewards accessed through the attribute screens. Thank God we are finally off this one, and we are now able to go over and talk specifically about PvP. I think this is where shit gets spicy. Because if you know how to read this and you know the community sentiment around a bunch of things in here, there is some very interesting phrasing that is a very political way to put it, but says it about as clearly as it needs to. So I'm just going to read this. New World offers both PvP and PvE gameplay. Balancing these two modes is as important to us as it is to many of you. As we work towards launch and continue to introduce new features and content, we would like to elaborate on our vision for PvP. If you'd like to jump directly to the alpha blah blah blah, you can find them there. The first PvP goal: coexist and complement. It's important to us that players choose how they want to play. Our vision for New World is to have PvP and PvE gameplay not only coexist, but complement each other so players can bounce back and forth between focusing on PvP and PvE. Our goal is for players to receive equal rewards for the same time invested with similar risk. So, fundamentally what this is saying is if you were hoping for a PvP server, you're probably not going to get it. Because they're designing the game with it in mind that it is going to be both of these things happening in tandem that gives people the ability to take it easy for a little while or go hardcore with things. You know, I think that's big.
It is.
Unique opportunities and activities. While a player will never be required to flag for PvP, you know, you don't have to. It's not a, you know, you can avoid, you can make it to level cap without ever toggling your PvP on, without ever doing a PvP mission. There's nothing wrong with that. They certainly want PvP to have a unique and meaningful role in a tournament. Open world PvP and wars will allow players to lay claim to a tournament through conquest, and provide benefits to all players in their faction. Our April Alpha release introduces new features to further support these goals. So, those new features. Faction control points. Since other major PvP activities like Wars and Outpost Rush are scheduled or instanced, we want to create PvP hotspots in the open world that help foster and concentrate PvP. Fundamentally speaking, let's get people who want to PvP into the same spot and let them wail on each other for good cause. You know, if a faction has more players inside, oh, I just jumped ahead. We also felt that forts found in each region were underutilized, if utilized at all other than sieges. And we wanted to give players reasons to adventure into these locations outside of wars. We've turned each region's fort into a PvP control point, which will provide both territory and global rewards for the controlling faction. These faction control points will give players a way to engage in open world PvP that directly benefits their faction. So going out, taking these places, coordinating with the rest of your faction to take multiple of them is going to have a benefit on your playstyle. It's going to have a benefit on your faction as a whole, and gives you a goal. You know, hey, we don't own this one, but we could. It doesn't seem defended or doesn't seem well defended. Let's go attack it. You know, so how to participate in this. Territory forts will now require players to be flagged for PvP before they enter them, which means you have to flag from your settlement, run there, make it there alive, and then duke it out there. Forts
I
will have a
wanted to-
control point, which players will battle to claim. If a faction has more players inside the control point than any other faction, that faction will begin to slowly capture the control point. The more players that faction has inside the control point, the faster they'll capture it. The status of each fort will be visible on the world map, so players can see which factions have claimed forts and which forts are currently being contested. When rival factions are assaulting a control point, region-wide messages will alert players that the location is being contested and draw further attention to the location. Control points will be available to contest immediately upon another company claiming that territory. The only times control points will be inactive will be just before and after wars and invasions. In terms of death, you could probably just drop a camp outside and respawn there.
So one of the things in that I also we didn't quite cover, and I wanted to just kind of say that I'm glad, is the fact that you have to be PV plagued to enter the forts is kind of good, because you could kind of say that if that wasn't the case and PvE or non-flag players can walk into there, it would mean that you could basically use non-flag players to basically scout those places to see whether there's actually people in them or not. But the fact that you can't enter them without being PvP flagged means that you have to go in blind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is great.
Makes it a
'cause that
PvP
means
only
that,
type deal. I like that.
I just wanted to bring attention to that because I think we kind of missed that previously.
So now we've already talked in the prior patch notes about what those rewards are, but looking forward, we'll be monitoring player reception and activity at each of these control points for data and feedback to help them tune the mechanics and rewards. So basically, if certain territories aren't being taken and captured all that often, they're probably going to make them more valuable, which would make sense.
Yeah.
Territory control incentives. So this gets into, people felt that, hey, owning a territory really doesn't do us much. Territory ownership is a big part of the New World experience. With the inclusion of territory control incentives, our goal is to entice more players to take part in claiming and protecting territory by making the rewards of settlement ownership more appealing. Benefits to being part of the faction that owns specific territories include linked storages between settlements owned by the same faction, and a resource cart in town that provides small amounts of crafting materials to faction members, in addition to the previously existing benefits related to fast travel, gathering volume, luck, and more. These bonuses will be suspended if a territory's taxes are not paid. It's more in the patch notes, which we read earlier. Outpost Rush. Outpost Rush is fundamentally a high-level player activity. So there is going to be, probably day one, people will not have read this last sentence. This is not something that you can day one jump into and be competitive in. This is something you need to be level 60, so you are max level. This is end game content. This is a combination of PvP, PvE, and it is 20v20, capture multiple forts, play domination with those forts, type gameplay. It is really cool. Looking forward to seeing that more in the future. But again, it is end game content. So I can't stress that enough, because I'm sure somebody's going to be like, level 4 and be like, I want to do Outpost Rush, and then they're going to be like, you better grind for a while. So it's a lot of fun. With this, in order to get involved in it, you need to go to either your faction representative, and basically go sign up. You can sign up as a solo person or a group of 5 or up to 5, and it'll group you in with a side, and then you'll go 20v20 and have some fun. There's a lot of benefits to winning, as we discussed in the patch notes. There's custom gear and skins and stuff like that that are available specific for that you can't get anywhere else. It is also, rewarded with XP, with gear, with all kinds of other things. And people will be mad if they can't level during Outpost Rush. Well, fundamentally speaking, you're done leveling at that point anyways, and is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the idea is to basically provide a somewhat even sort of playing experience, so that players aren't heavily outmatched by other players, essentially, and so those teams of 20 are at least at a base level, sort of somewhat equally matched.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I say somewhat equally matched. Obviously, there's a big difference if you're going to be running ridiculous T5 gear, or whether you're running like really terrible T5 gear that hasn't actually been put together well, and you're not really set up properly for it and stuff. But at least if it's only level 60s, at least the 20 on 20 matches are going to be to a degree somewhat well matched to each other.
Mm-hmm.
There's some interesting stuff because they actually tell you about how the game progresses.
Yeah, so it's an interesting take on domination, I think, is the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Domination being if for anybody who's cued in on first-person shooters, domination is basically 3 flags, generally between 3 and 5 flags, where you try and take the majority of flags so that your team gains more points than the enemy team over time, building a lead and eventually winning when one side hits a certain amount of points. Well, the difference here is that those points are now outposts. That you can defend, you can build up defenses and turrets and gates and a command post in each. The command post, all of these things, in order to build them, you have to actually go around and collect Azoth-infused materials from around the world. So at the same time, you've got a PvE element where the area is trying to kill you, your opponent is trying to kill you, but you also need to resource gather in order to build up your defenses. So it gives you a real incentive to not just bunker down and be like, we got our 2 bases, just hold them. You need to also get out there and continually get resources and not just rest on your laurels. You have to continually be going out. You can't stay aggressive, you can't stay defensive. You have to kind of go with a balanced approach.
Yeah, because for example, if you're holding 2 of the, for example, if you're just bunkering down in the 2/4 that you hold, right, and you're not going out, you're just basically you're repelling borders essentially, right? The other team could be holding their one fort and going out and reinforcing, finding materials, coming back and reinforcing that fort, because they're not contested, because your team's bunkered down in those 2 forts that you're not reinforcing. At some particular point, they're going to basically push and try and take one of the other forts, and it will be easier for them to do that than you trying to take their other fort, because that fort would be pretty well fortified, right? So they'll most likely be able to take the fort that you have inadequately defended, and probably hold that and their previous fort. So there's the capacity of being able to fortify positions in this game is going to be pretty cool. It has some interesting nuanced sort of aspects to the play style and the dynamic of the game.
Mm-hmm. So additionally,
There was
let's say
something-
you're gaining, Azoth as you do this. You're also able to summon creatures to aid you. So, for instance, you could go to one of these summoning circles that are stone platforms found in various key locations around the map. Any player who has acquired a summoning item can summon a monstrous ally who will defend that location from enemy players. So now you've got not just 20v20, but if you're good and you're collecting these resources and you use them in a timely manner, you could potentially, quick all run out of a base, all grab the summoning stuff to summon in, whatever animals come to aid you or whatever things come to aid you. Now all of a sudden you've got a lot of allies defending one location that might be able to help a small group repel a much larger force from actually taking place, which I think is a pretty solid mechanic.
I like this Baroness Hayne bit, in actual fact. Baroness Hayne spawns every 10 minutes. The team who deals the killing blow will gain a strong buff that increases their health regeneration and defenses for the next 3 minutes. That's not really the thing that I'm kind of like, that's like, ooh. It's the next bit. At the same time, the enemy score will be frozen, preventing them from gaining any points for 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm. So again,
so that
you
could
can't
be
just sit back in your base. If you've got 2 bases, we're just going to defend. They can go grab that every 10 minutes and slow things down and potentially whittle you down out of one of those and gain it back in those 3 minutes and change the course of the battle. So that's cool. I like that.
Because at the end of the day, the point to this is to get past a certain point score, right? So if your team is constantly having your point score frozen, like even if you're bunkering down in 2 forts, you probably won't. You might not win. Like, if your points keep on getting frozen, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's pretty. And so the other side of that is that you also have the corrupted portals that, let's say you're just sitting there defending and you're not going out and killing stuff and you're not collecting things. The enemy could come in with these corrupted portals and spawn corrupted creatures which will help attack different locations. So like that could be pretty crazy as well. I would imagine timeline-wise, these have got to be pretty long matches.
I would imagine so, especially if you're fortifying positions. But
I suppose the time would change based on like if it's a close fight. Or if it's a blowout, like if one side takes all 3 forts and holds it for the whole game, it's not going to take very long. But if they're constantly fighting over the middle fort, and it's one side has 2, one side has 1, and then flip flops, and they stay close, it'll be a much longer game. Anybody who's ever played a Battlefield game or Call of Duty Domination, you know exactly what I'm talking about here, where like the match could be over very quickly or the match could be over in a very long amount of time. But would be fun either way. So
just looking at this, I'm just it's first team to reach 1,000 points wins. An outpost grants 1 point every 3 seconds. If you hold all 3 outposts, you basically get a point every second. And so to reach 1,000 points would take 1,000 seconds, which is about 16 minutes. And that's obviously not inclusive of like points every PvP kill, and ever other additional bonuses that you can get.
PvP kills are worth a point. Ooh. Yeah, don't go feeding your enemy.
Yeah. So literally you're feeding your enemy.
Yeah. You're not helping. You're just dying. Just help defend. Lob fireballs from the back. Like, stop dying.
But it's
I
interesting.
used to play
there's
Call
incentives
of
to go out.
Duty. I used to play Call of Duty and Battlefield competitively, and like the bane of my existence was people just like throwing their body against things, and it was like, this is not how you win. Yeah.
There's something here that, like, I don't know whether it's a tell for something coming soon or not, like, but it's a potential, like, it's kind of like a you know, like, if they can do it here, then why can't they? Then maybe they'll eventually end up doing it in in Eternum, right? And it says, like, where is it? Players can use storage sheds to share infused material and Azoth with their team.
Please, for the love
I'm
of
thinking,
God.
like, if they can do that, like, if they can bring that out of, if they can bring that out of Outpost Rush, like, properly, and give it
Yes.
to, like,
Just a
companies,
company
that'd be
storage.
amazing.
Yes, please.
But, like, I'm just looking at that and kind of thinking that's like that's the first instance of, like, them being able to find a way of being able to do that, right? At least for a team, right? So I don't know. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but it seems like it's at least a viable thing that could be moved to the wider game.
Oh yeah. So, needless to say, there is a lot of stuff that we've covered here. I do want to quick invite everybody to the Discord. We do have a Discord, and this is not just because, like, we want to, like, expand our Discord. This is because, like, there's generally other things that the Discord offers in terms of being the first to know stuff like this is happening. We have automated polls from their website. We have an art collection that is second to none, that includes everything that has ever been released publicly about the game from the official sources, including concept art that you can no longer get from the original versions of the game. We have what else do we have? We have automated sources for some YouTube channels, content creators, not just us. So of course, like, one of the benefits of joining the Discord, it's free, of course, but also you'll get channels that stream in other channels, other people that we feel are worth watching in the community, and people that feel hey, they reach out to us. Hey, can you post our stuff up on there? And we set up an automatic feed so all their YouTube channels and stuff filter in. So we have a community content creator channel. We track the official YouTube channel, the official Twitter, so you can see what they're saying. We will also, and I've already started the progress of this, there is a tweet that came out today that was overlooked in the mass quantities of other things, but this came out today. We will have an official Discord, and they'll launch it closer to a closed beta NDA lift. So
nice.
That is a firm change in what they've been saying for a year and a half, but I fundamentally think that is a good thing. We will have automated feeds from them, so they'll post stuff automatically. We'll grab it from there and bring it over. So there's things like that we feel provide a benefit to you beyond just hey, here's a ping for when our show goes on, which, hey, if that's what you want to use it for, more the merrier. Additionally, after the show, we generally hang out in public chat, and for those that have been in the server for a while, you've probably noticed that we hang out in public chat pretty much all day, every day. I telework most days, and I now live alone. As people can tell, this is my new office. So, fundamentally speaking, instead of going crazy, I'd rather chat with people and chat with them about New World, chat with them about gaming, chat with them about various different things, tech news, science. We've watched rocket launches and, try and avoid some politics stuff, but it does pop up every once in a while. There's a lot of stuff that we try and do, a lot of stuff that that we feel that we can offer. So feel free, join the Discord. If you don't want to, totally understand, but it is there. Aside from that, can I give advice about securities and crypto? We do actually have an economics channel, and there are individuals who can talk to you about securities and crypto. Marriage counseling, I think we're going to leave that to the professionals. I don't want to armchair develop your marriage. But aside from that, I also want to say thank you to our Patreons. I want to say thank you to our subscribers, to our followers, anybody who's watching right now. Thank you. We are currently hard charging towards our goal of 500 followers. We're currently at 468, so every follow counts. There are 2 ways to do this. One of them will send you an email every time we go live, and that's if you just hit the follow button. If you hit the follow button and then turn off the notifications, you won't get any notifications, but it will still have you following us, which, hey, helps us out, helps the channel out. We're really trying to break that 500 number, because it's a really, in terms of Twitch, it's kind of a big goal, especially for a small channel. So, you're right. It is kind of comical. So I do want to touch on that. Studio Loot, you got Bordy and Redbeard, who kind of look like they could be brothers. And then you've got McLeod and I, who are both rocking the beards, rocking the pale pale complexion type look. Mine looks a little bit different because I've got lighting sources from all over the place, but I'm about as white as it gets. But we look like we could definitely be related. But it is kind of comical from that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So again, with all of that, obviously we're excited about the game. We're excited about how things are coming along. We're excited to see the channel continue to grow. We're excited that you guys are here. We're hoping to continue to put out more and up-to-date content on a much more regular basis. And that said, really thank you everyone, and we will see you in the new world.